Aloha, this is Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you live from my battleship right here on the beautiful island of Oahu. Today, this week on the Covert Code, I'm proud to introduce Cam Tullos, probably one of the most gifted developers that I know, and longtime friend and business partner. Today, our topic is the technology transformation and really unlocking how companies look at technology and their stack and when to make the decision to transition and what kind of barriers exist when they don't in the right time. Thanks for being here, Cam.
Yeah, anytime. So one of the things that we normally run into as technologists is we're presented with some insurmountable tasks. And someone's like, we need to get this done, right? There's marketing initiative, there's financial initiatives, there's key points of interest that we want to accomplish. And the visions are perfect. Everyone's put a lot of time and effort into these visions. And then we get to the point where it's time to execute and, oh no, we've got a proprietary system in place that we have to deal with. Mm-hmm. Which then, we have these ripple effects of like, okay, well, we obviously can deal with these systems. We can work around them. We can supplant them. We can integrate with them. But then they end up becoming cost centers. It's going to take X amount of time, X amount of dollars to work with your proprietary system or your third-party system, your API that only maybe the accounting team uses.
Right.
Right. And so figuring out ways to, be agile and fluid around those obvious obstacles, because everybody encounters them in technology, is it's a real important skill to have, right? So,
what do you think the first step is in identifying, what to keep and what to remove in your tech stack of today, so that you can be agile in the future?
Yeah, you want to remove. You want to think about one, who's using these particular things, right? So say something's in the way. It's stopping you from accomplishing a goal. You don't have the finances to go around it, so you don't have money to put into support, right? To put in going around it. So you have to, it's there, right? So you ask the question, who uses it? Who's using this piece of software? Oh, it's Peggy in finance.
She's it.
Yeah, she's it. She's been here for 20 years.
Yeah. That's only 5% of what the software
She's
does.
literally 0.1% of the workforce. And she's stopping us from this, $20 million initiative that we have going on, right? And then, and everyone's like, well, it's not just Peggy. If you dig deeper, it's like, well, what Peggy is doing goes to the CTO, or it goes to the CEO. It's going to the CMO, right? So you're like, okay, so her work product is dependent on this piece of software, and decisions are being made on that work product. So now that's not just Peggy. Now we've realized that it's an actual, $2 million a year piece of software that is being used. So do we go around it or do we keep it, right? And you ask you go on the next step up, and you ask the guy who Peggy delivers to, what is the meaning of this and why is it important? So you just do a little more fact finding, to find that answer.
Another thing is interesting, like I've been doing currently a lot of, almost half of what we do daily is helping clients move software, right? Or use workflow automation to speed up production, be more efficient and more effective, or developing these plugins and things like that, right? And I think it's so interesting that the barrier, oftentimes isn't leadership, right? But it's actually, it trickles down, right? Once we roll through a software and we roll it out and we think it's so wonderful, it's going to be so much easier, if people get stuck on this tiniest little thing. Oh, well, again, that's how I used to do before, and I don't want to do it.
No, that's the bane of every developer's existence. That's not how we used to do it before, and can you just?
Right.
Right? So we run into those two phrases all the time. Can't you just make something else? Yeah, that's not how we've always done it before. So yeah, that surmounting that question is always it's more of the philosophical side of it, right? Like, should we?
Right.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's always it depends kind of answer on that one. um, you know, there's always the how much pushback are we going to get on it? Like, I'm used to doing it this way, or that's not how we've always done it, right? So you get that pushback, and you're like, okay, well why is there pushback? Is it an education problem? Is it an actual limitation to the technology and software you're using? Is it just a preference thing? You know, so getting those answers again. This all goes back to that initial, requirement gathering, investigation process that you just have to do up front. You don't want to wait till after we've already come up with a big idea, and then let's go do user interviews now, right?
Right. No. But I think it's incredible, even when you do those user interviews, that later, once you start down the path, you realize that there's software that no one in the company even knows they have.
Yeah. So as doing consultant work at IBM, that was kind of like the big portion of all of our jobs is you go on site, you sit down, and you say, okay, this is the ERD, entity relationship diagram, right? All the software, what departments use it, what how they connect, and then how they work. And you say, okay, you've got 264 pieces of software, APIs, applications. How can we do something with this, right? Can we shrink this? Should we shrink it? Where do we shrink it? Why are we shrinking? Are we growing it? Like a lot of times you end up growing it, right? We don't have a CRM. Well, we either build one or let's go get Salesforce. So, but whatever, right?
Whenever someone wants to build, whenever I hear the word that they want to build a CRM, I want to like a part of me dies inside. It's just with so much sophisticated software out there, like when you have to ask yourself, why do you need to build your own? What are your thoughts on that?
It depends. It depends. It depends on the size of your organization. Sometimes a third-party off-the-shelf solution is just too big. We don't have the time. We don't have the education. We don't have the people in place to implement it, right? Again, let's go back to Peggy. She's been here for 20 years. She's got a fixed task. She doesn't have time to learn a CRM. These are the things on her list that she needs done.
Just build it for her.
Let's just build it for her.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's not just Peggy. It's the entire marketing team now, right? We need consistent data and information. We need, to feed this through analytics. We need to have very set processes, statuses, and workflows in place. You don't want to build that from scratch.
No. Well, the reporting stuff, that's constantly evolving too.
Right.
It was just the other day I was on this podcast for universal consent, and they're talking about, the either building your own solution, right? Or, getting a software solution. Yeah. But when you start to think about the trickle down of how many places a user's data could be stored and collected in a big enterprise company, I mean, it's pretty daunting.
It's very daunting. The other thing you have to consider is the security of that data.
Right.
Sure, if it's just going between, two clients internally, you can have a higher fidelity of let's just roll our own, let's make our own. When it's, like you said, it's touching people from the intern all the way up to the CMO, right? Like, you probably want something that's got a little more of a narrow focus on security and keeping things, tighter, more constraints, more filtering and sanitization processes and all that kind of stuff. So you want something that's a little more robust. Again, that's not something you really want to do.
Well, what I thought was really interesting is that I never considered, now with this whole GDPR and this other types of privacy that we need, you never really thought about internally what that means. But really now, it's the right of every individual to execute their service, their SRR or subject right request. And I can go to my company and say, hey, I want to see everything that you have on me. And so if you're documenting as a business, ethnicity, gender, sexual preferences, even reasons that they were not promoted, now that then could become potential risk.
It's a fake liability.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just on that, not just on the legal side of that, also on the moral side of that, right? If you're putting in place of, people's gender, right? And you're looking at rejection and gender, you may be spurred to change your rules based off of that data and that output. It's a temptation, right? You have that temptation in front of you to do something to be a negative, actor as opposed to something positive for your organization. So if you can strip those things away, keep things as out of view like that as you can, for all means, you definitely should. Yeah. I've worked with a lot of systems where we purposely obfuscate those kind of things, right? Like we don't want to know anything about race, age, sex, color.
I mean, you can think about it the other day, like, with this, even a massage, right? When you go to a massage therapist and they have you ask that questionnaire, where's that questionnaire being stored?
Where's it being stored? Yeah.
Like, why are you asking me that? Why are you documenting it? Right. I mean, it's, I think that we're up for a rude awakening here in America of like what actually it means to have data, like, a map for privacy and what is going to happen. And if you do share that data with a third party and now they execute their right to be forgotten, what are you going to do? And maybe I consented today to having my data be used for medical purposes,
Right.
But tomorrow I may change my mind.
Right.
And what then?
Now what?
Right?
Right.
Yeah. How do you think AI plays a role in all this?
Oh, AI. Well, it's a topic right now. I think AI plays a part in that particular conversation and being able to identify where that data is going, right? Without doing a large lift on creating algorithms and logic to find it, right? So if I can just say, hey, ChatGPT, here's all my data. Let it figure out where the touch points are. Tell me where I need to start, creating instances around that information. Using AI in that scope is, I think, a good thing. But again, it's the same temptation. I can also use it to start excluding. I can start using it to say, okay, here's all my data on all these things. Get rid of a specific gender, age group, right?
You mean like if you were like, it was like for hiring workers?
Hiring, approval on credit worthiness, things like that. Demographics. Where should we put?
Really, the AI just kind of like. Well, I mean, I guess it is an interesting thought because I always think about like what's missing when you train AI. You train it today, and it's good today, but just as behavior changes and trends change, how will the AI know that? It's like I gave an example in one of my articles about like Santa's workshop. Santa is the one who's telling the elves what to make. And if we didn't, then we'd still be getting little rocking horses,
sure.
Right? Elves don't know that Tickle Me Elmo was popular this year and that it's out the next year, right? So if you train AI for today, how can we know that it's going to be on pace with tomorrow?
How do you train your kids? So
ongoing.
It's ongoing.
Right.
So imagine, you are born today and someone says, here's all the data today. Your job is, you have no context of the world. You have no context of, right or wrong. All you're presented with is just raw data, right? So that's what the current LLMs do not do. They're not aware. They're not aware of, the political state, not aware of the cultural state. They're not aware of social contracts, right? So they're a lot right now. They're being guided by humans. So someone's training them. It's a large part of the process. You have to train your AI on the data that you're presenting it. So let's keep in mind that while ChatGPT is awesome, ChatGPT was trained on public data by people.
Right.
So it was go search the internet. Hey, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. So an actual human went through the process of verifying the things that it should and shouldn't.
But is it going to continue? Because here's the thing now, like that's what my problem is that now all these, thought leaders, like Forbes and Wall Street Journal, they're all saying, no, you cannot crawl our sites, right? Because they're stealing content and from paying licensed subscribers. And now the only people that really, it seems like, do have agreements are BuzzFeed and places that are not considered trustworthy. So now how are we going to say that this AI is going to get better when it has less valuable information, and who is going to continue to verify that data?
That's the question. Yeah. The even bigger question is, who's gonna continually pay for its training, right?
Right.
It's a buzz right now. Everyone wants to, literally tech companies are literally slashing people, cutting people out so that they can pay to do AI, right? How long is that going to go on?
Well, we talked about like the adoption curve and like the GitHub thing you're telling me, like, you know, we're close here to the proof of concept that they need for them to monetize it. And then it's just like Zapier. Every single Zap, it's like not one Zap for one action. It's like I could charge you 20 Zaps for one record moved between one system and another system. So now you have your AI and it's like, okay, you ask it for every single command. What's it going to charge you by? Word count? Who knows?
Who knows? And those costs, they're going to get exponential, just like hosting has gotten it. Like, you know, oh, AWS, you can start for free. And then you get your first bill, it's $5,000. Right? And you're like, whoa, like, what? What?
You hope it's $5,000.
Oh, right.
If you're like, oh, it's crushing it.
Yeah, it means you're crushing, but it also is like, it's a bit, you know, WTF moment for you. Yeah. Like, this was literally free and now it's not. Right? So the same thing is going to happen with the these AI models. They're giving them away at low cost, but we just went through a zero interest rate phenomenon bust, right? Like, that's why the current tech market, the job market is crashing, is that people said, okay, no more zero interest rates, right? Right now, they're offering AI at maybe a 1% interest rate of what it's actually going to be when a big company decides to put their entire application system on it. So seeing how the mentality around it then shifts to where something that should be a necessity in what you're doing now becomes a for that,
right?
You know, that actually has become, that was a big non-starter with current technology. Again, IBM Watson. You can go test it, try it out for free for indefinitely. The second you try to use it in your application, the price goes from $0 to, you know, $1,000, $2,000 instantly. Your small business, is something that you can feasibly, a cost you can incur regularly? You're like,
well, it depends on what the value. What's the new value? What's the value? You know, and as I was talking about marketing, it's like, what is the value of a new customer? It's also, what is the value of an employee or a team member? And there should be an exponential addition to that, right? That one person should be able to get us X amount more. So we're saying, okay, but now we're going to remove that person from the equation and then put it into AI. But someone still has to, like we're talking about, nurture and control and you know, and is that person who's training it aligned with the full vision of the company? And that to me is like, no, I mean, because how could they be? You know,
they're not sitting in those same meetings with the board, right?
Well, and even if they were, I mean, like even if we had AI, like, you know, just like Siri is listening to everything. Like if Siri is like in there in the board, would that be, you know, because people are change their mind so much, right? I mean,
the current trend of AI itself, right? Like who's clapping the loudest for this, right? Think about that for a second. It's the CTOs, the C-level suite people, the board, the investors, the angel investors, right? So you got to look at like, where's the buzz coming from? Okay, we've seen this happen at least 4 or 5 times already. And I can give you an example. You just mentioned it, Siri, right? This is transformative technology. You can talk to your phone and it'll do things for you.
Right.
How many times do you actually ever see anyone using Siri to its full potential? Only it's almost less than 1% probably of the total users. You know, Siri, send this text message, or Siri, look up this, right? That's all it. Same thing with Alexa.
Like making it tell it stupid things. Like,
really gimmicky things. There's very little, you know, way of like, you know, oh, that was really cool or really useful to do with you know.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
There you go. That's correct. Perfect timing. So yeah, like those kind of things. Like that technology itself was being clapped and pushed and rah-rah by every C-suite level person, and we have zero out of it right now, right? So you have to pay attention to who's, you know, clapping the most for these kind of things, because a lot of times it's the person who is going to benefit the most, right? You know, right now, Microsoft is the loudest voice for AI, and that's because they are in the lead in producing it. They're doing some cool stuff for sure. but like until it gets to the point where it's affecting the average person's life, on a more profound level, right? Like cell phones, for instance, that was a profound piece of technology that came out that instantly changed people's lives. No more landlines. I'm free. I can go with my phone.
Even how it impacted, like, like hearing,
Hearing,
in some third world countries, like the ability to not have to have an expensive ear thing
Exactly.
and make it, that was like a game.
Yeah, in healthcare, if I can do my charting, right, as a doctor on my phone, like it was a transformative piece of software and hardware that did something different. So like AI, I don't think anyone has talked about that yet. They're talking about what it could be, but they're not talking about it in the scope of what could it actually mean for an end user. What's the interface gonna be like? Is it going to be speech? Is it going to be the text box, right? No one's talking about, how are we going to actually use AI in an everyday life? Everyone's just saying, well, how am I can just get rid of jobs right now?
Right.
And if that's the entire motivation for most of these people to get into the AI scope, it's going to fail.
It's going to fail.
Yeah. I don't want it to because I think it's really cool. I think it could really...
I was reading today about this a startup the guy raised all this money. It's called Hum. And it's for, emotional, and that sounded interesting.
Yeah.
And I think what is your prediction? What shape will it take? Is it going to be a human form? Is it going to be like, picking? I remember you had mentioned to me an idea you had that I thought was really interesting about, being able to tell your phone what you want to see or what you don't want to see.
Yeah.
And like,
I think
today, right?
I think it becomes, I think what they're pushing is for it to be this anonymous person in the room, right? Like it's always there. It's ever present. It's the angel on your shoulder, right? Like that's where it's being pushed at. What I think is actually going to end up being is more of a, honestly, I hate to say this, but I really think it's going to be a search engine. It's going to replace an existing search engine. It's going to be a more...
How to advertise? What happens to advertisements?
The same thing. It's gonna say, okay, this guy... I mean...
That could be good, though.
Google's using AI for their advertising model right now.
Well, and so are we, like, now with the cookielessness, the third-party cookie deprecation, actually, like, contextual AI is probably one of the easiest and I think most efficient ways to do advertising now.
Yeah.
Online.
I mean, I think that's all it's really going to ever amount to is just, for lack of better way to say it, is selling people more stuff.
Well, consent, I think as long as consent's at the top of the funnel of like, hey, some people do want ads. And like, I like when Facebook even asked me, did you like this ad or not?
Yeah.
Or do you want to see more of it or not? The only problem is I may want to see more of it today, but then tomorrow I'm over it.
Yeah.
And like, then it becomes too much work. I mean, maybe if there was a layer of like your personal kind of coach, AI, like, hey, today I'm in the mood for something light and friendly and I want recipes and I want, read a list of what you want in the morning. And then that's the content that it could curate for.
Yeah. So on that same idea, Threads has like a pretty cool interface for that, right? Like when you first start out, you're like, you say at Threads or hey Threads, show me, and you show a list of all the things you want to see, and you actually see those things in your thread, in your feed, and then later on you're like, show me less. You can tell it to show me less, and then do a post to show me less, and it'll start showing you less of those things. Yeah, it's they're doing some really cool stuff with how the feed is actually being presented to you, and then it looks at more about what you comment on, like your actual interaction. Not just because I click this link doesn't mean that this is something I like.
Right.
I could have clicked this link to see how terrible it was, right? And that's the current model on Facebook, Google, all these things. It's all about oh, you clicked it means you like it. That's not
true. You're hovering.
You're hovering. Yeah. You pause.
They call it to stop the scroll for a second, and like it's like it could be right. It could be interest, or it could be like horror.
It could be repulsive, right? More often than not, whenever I stop over something, it's like, oh.
I know. Take a screenshot of it. I'm like, yeah, show that to the team. Like,
yeah, right. Or like,
made this. Like,
a lot of times, with how negative most commenting is, like more often than not, if you will engage with comments, it's to tell somebody how bad that thing is, or how much they hate something.
People would rather talk shit than
and it's true.
They are.
It's true.
We know, like, when someone has a good experience, they tell maybe 1 to 3 people. Bad experience, at least 8 to 10.
They want everyone out.
Yeah.
So like, just because I comment, again, just because I commented on it doesn't mean I like it. So that's one of the things that I found interesting when I was learning more about how Threads is operating, is that they're actually using AI, looking at the comments, looking at the context of the comment, and then deciding, oh, this guy actually likes football, or that guy he hates the NFL.
It's really contextual.
Correct.
But that's more
contextual.
And
Using it in those ways, absolutely. I think that's a great use case of it. But again, at the end of the day, that's just showing me or selling me more stuff, right? Yeah.
that you want.
That I want.
Right. And I think that's always the struggle is like when you get on a computer or you're online, you are on an engine.
Yeah.
Right. And in order for people to be able to pay for these tools, there needs to be some transaction at the end. Either you pay for to not have transaction, or you're paying what else?
That's a new social contract that has come up in the last 10 years that has not always been the way of the internet.
Right. It was always for free.
It used to be everything was just for free. It was more about, everyone was contributing to this open.
But that's what we got ourselves
Forum
to kick off.
of
Like that's
information.
when well, and the data, that's why we have these privacy rules that are coming out now, because people were taking your data. That was the exchange. And now that they were selling that data, and that was monetization. And now that we have all these rules in place to protect, the user, if they can't sell the data, then there's going to be other ways that we can pay for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's 100% true. But that's also because the powers that be have decided that you need to make money on something. How often do people do advertising just for buzz or noteworthiness, right? So the beginning of the internet, that's exactly all it really was like, just get some notoriety or become an authority on something, and money will come in other fashions, whether it be new business or someone reaches out to you because of
Software, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And it created that we talk about, the software for a service kind of.
Yes.
To make it more transactional or to make it easier.
Yeah, but now it's, everything's so focused on getting a return on investment, right? Nothing gets built unless we can monetize it first, and then figure out, is this thing even any good? Like more often than not, we're thinking about how to monetize something before we even figure out, is it anything that anyone's ever actually going to use?
It's like the problem with shop suing.
Right.
Yeah. Like instead of focusing on what it could have been, which was a way to find where you're going in the mall, which I still can't do till this day, it became too complex and too convoluted. It was too many actors, And I do think that's back to the beginning. Like that's part of for me when I do technology consulting with a client, it's like, what problem are we trying to solve here?
Right.
And anything else besides that, it's just in the way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so, other thing too is you got to ask yourself as an organization, are we trying to do something that's innovative? Are we trying to do something that affects the bottom line? And are we trying to, do something that will improve the lives of someone else?
Right.
If you can't answer any three of those questions, then more often than not, you probably shouldn't even be, considering doing something, right?
Just back away.
Yeah, right. And then depending on which one of those things, which one of those answers you're in, that's how you set your expectations, right? We're trying to do something innovative. Great. That means that you're going to spend a lot of money and you're willing to wait for some sort of return on investment.
Or not at all. It's for social change.
Right.
It's just a conversion to talk about. Not all things mean the same. Some are on the hard conversions, are closer to you making money. There's also soft conversions, and those can be just as meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what you're
doing. Sure. GitHub is a great example.
Yeah.
For so many years, they've operated under the guise of, we're providing a service for developers. GitHub has literally transformed the lives of a lot of developers. It makes it so easy to create code, share your code, maintain your code, update it, have other people working with you on your code. And it's always existed as this is something that we're doing good for the betterment of our world, right? Sure, they monetize it. It's a very low monetization value, $7-10 a user or something like that. Beyond 5 or 6 or something. I don't know the exact number, but it's a very small price for something that literally transformed how developers actually do their job.
Yeah.
Right.
What are your thoughts on Wikipedia?
Oh, Wikipedia's. I love how you relationship with Ruby, right? I love that it's there. I love what it does. I love that it's got all this great information on it. I hate that there's like really no official organization that monitors.
For me, I think it's not a source of truth.
Yeah, it's not a source of where to start from.
Yeah, and that's my biggest problem is like when there has been just about to kind of like the same idea of like the subject right request that I should have the right to correct information. Yeah. Well, what about with Wikipedia? Like we've had clients, an author and whatnot, who we could not update our own page.
Yeah.
And that to me was like a red flag, right? If you're you should make it as easy as possible to be able to make sure that it is as close to truth as possible.
Yeah, there needs to be I've talked about this before, but having a source of truth validator company. Like they used to be called fact checkers.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you'd rent a book, and there was a team of fact checkers before you could ever get your book published, and they would fact check everything in your book, then it gets published, right? I don't know why we don't have that on the internet.
Wow.
I mean,
that's what we can get AI to do.
Well, maybe until it starts learning how to
when it
create its own narrative.
Reads something that isn't true, right?
Right.
And it's like, I read that there are giants that are living in Africa.
But how does it know where to find the truth at?
Right.
So
you can write anything in a book.
You can write anything in a book. You can also write anything online. And if AI is using website crawl data to figure out what's true or false, I can just go populate 40,000 websites with bad information.
I've been marketing for a long time.
I mean, there's that saying.
Spinning traffic all around.
Right. So I don't think that that's source of truth isn't something that I think AI is probably going to be very suited to unless it awakens.
Right.
Unless it starts to understand our moral compasses, our social contracts, and our different demographic makeups. Right. Like
how many years are we away from awakening?
It depends on who's in charge. If the corporation is in charge, probably never. if the collective, group of people who are building these things is in charge, maybe sooner rather than later. Historically, the collective group doesn't mobilize well enough to do anything, so probably never.
Whenever. Well, I guess since the sun's coming over here, I guess it's a good place to conclude our podcast. Thank you so much, Cam, for being here. To learn more about Cam, you can go to reactive.io or find him on LinkedIn. Aloha.
Aloha.